Good morning once again. It is such a joy to be with you this day, in person and online, this day that we are celebrating Youth Sunday. On behalf of the young people in our youth group, I'm here to share some thoughts on the gospel story that we just heard about Jesus and his disciples, along with some other modern day stories that highlight for us important messages about identity, belonging, and caring for one another. Often in the days and weeks that follow Easter, we turn our attention to the post-resurrection stories where Jesus appears in various circumstances. In the book of John, he first appears to Mary Magdalene at the tomb, and then to his disciples in the upper room, and shortly thereafter to Thomas. But in this morning's gospel reading, Jesus appears to some of his followers on the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. This is the story that was assigned in the lectionary for today, and as I told the youth group in class last week, we got pretty lucky because this one speaks so well to many of the themes that we in class have been exploring together. First, we have Jesus on the shore, noticing that the disciples are struggling to catch any fish. He invites them to try something new, to perhaps lay down their certainty of fishing the right way, happens to be the left side of the boat, and to open up to the possibility of a different perspective. Their trust in Jesus not only yields a positive result, but it also secures them an invitation to join him for some breakfast on the beach. At that breakfast, as they recognize and celebrate Jesus' return, there's a sense of joy, relief, awe, and gratitude. The risen one has come to them offering wisdom through an invitation to fish differently, and is now sharing a meal with them to reestablish community, belonging, and purpose. Think about the communities that you belong to. Do they ever bring you a sense of joy, relief, awe, or gratitude? In what ways do our communities then embody the risen Christ, embody love incarnate? In the third segment of the gospel story, Jesus has a heart-to-heart conversation with Peter. His message is clear as he asks Peter 3 times to proclaim his love for Jesus, and then responds each time with various versions of the same idea. Jesus says, "Feed my lambs, tend my sheep, feed my sheep." In other words, if you love me, take care of my people. This connection between loving God and loving our neighbor is echoed all throughout the Bible, isn't it? And it really is the foundation of our Christian faith. In this Easter season, for me, it summons the questions, what does it mean to experience the resurrected Christ? And how are we to be the hands of Christ in the world? How might we receive knowledge and wisdom that is rooted in love and use it to build bridges, to widen our communities, and foster a better sense of belonging? This morning, the youth group and I wanted to share some stories of a few individuals who have been inspiring us as we've been thinking about these questions together. The first is a woman named Caitlin Curtis, who caught our attention through a curriculum that we've been using called Holy Troublemakers and Unconventional Saints. I'd love to be one of those. Caitlin is an enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Band, who are Native American people originating in the western Great Lakes area and then later migrating against their will to Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. Growing up, Caitlin knew very little about her tribe, as her family passed as white and chose to identify with that side of her lineage as a matter of safety and security. But as a young adult, Caitlin began to learn about the language and the history and the culture of her people. She felt a strong affirmation from God in both her Christian faith and her tribal identity. She says that knowing her own origin stories helped her to understand the Bible better, answering questions about who we are and how we're meant to live. Although Christianity has long been used as a weapon against Indigenous people in many parts of the world, Caitlin tells us it's time to remember that everyone belongs. And now a well-known poet, activist, and author, Caitlin travels around the country giving talks about race, religion, resistance, and renewal. Her most recent book is called Native: Identity, Belonging, and Discovering God, explores the joys and challenges of reconnecting with one's roots and discovering God in new ways. Another inspiring example of widening the circle of belonging is a woman named Mindy Shire. She is the founder and creator of the Runway of Dreams Foundation. Mindy had been working in the fashion industry for 20 years and was inspired to start Runway of Dreams in 2014 when her son Oliver, who has muscular dystrophy, dreamed of wearing jeans like everyone else. After using her design skills to adapt a pair that met his needs and increased his confidence, she went on to conduct extensive research to develop clothing modifications that would meet the needs of the largest minority in our world, people with disabilities. Founded on the basis that clothing is a basic human need, the Runway of Dreams Foundation develops, delivers, and supports initiatives to broaden the reach of mainstream adaptive clothing and promote people with disabilities in the fashion industry. Today, in addition to hosting fashion shows all over this country, the foundation partners with several popular clothing brands to bring functional, comfortable, and stylish clothes to kids and adults of all abilities. Finally, we'd like to share with you what we've learned about the pride flag that we currently display outside of our church as a sign of welcome and inclusion. This rainbow flag was originally created by Gilbert Baker in 1978 to celebrate gay and lesbian people and to support their civil rights movement. It has served as a symbol of hope and belonging for many generations. More recently, as our society has grown in its understanding of sexuality and gender, various iterations of this flag were created in order to better acknowledge the diversity within the LGBTQ+ community. In 2018, what is now known as the Progress Pride flag was developed by American artist and designer Daniel Kazar. You'll notice on this flag the addition of the black and brown stripes, which are intended to represent marginalized LGBTQ communities of color. You'll also notice pink, light blue, and white stripes, which represent people who identify as transgender, gender non-binary, intersex, or anywhere across the gender spectrum. According to Kazar, quote, "The arrow on this new flag points to the right to show forward movement and illustrates that progress towards inclusivity still needs to be made." He goes on to say that the fight for inclusivity needs to come from both within and outside of the LGBT community. He writes, "This new design forces the viewer to reflect on their own feelings towards the original pride flag and its meaning, as well as the differing opinions on who that flag really represents, while also bringing into clear focus the current needs within our community." The late, great poet, author, and activist Maya Angelou once said, "Do the best that you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better." May each of us in this Easter season and beyond continue to expand our minds by listening to and learning from the lived experiences of others, so that our hearts might be more fully open to love incarnate. And may we be the hands of Christ in the world, ready to comfort, nourish, protect, and include all of God's precious children. Amen.